The Built Environment section states that in more recent times, the urban containment boundary has prevented further suburban crawl, resulting in more intense and concentrated development. Saanich and the Capital Regional District adopted both growth management policies and strategies aimed at keeping settlement compact. As a result, the traditional view of the outward growth as inevitable and necessary no longer is true. Containing and concentrating growth using the urban containment boundary provides for better protection of rural land and farmland, and environmentally sensitive areas and green spaces. It allows for cost-effective servicing and makes alternative transportation more viable, while reducing non-renewable energy use. At the same time, it puts greater pressure on parts of the existing urban area to accommodate new development. To retain Saanich's livability and improve its sustainability and vibrancy, the design and construction of the built environment will be critical. Under the sustainable land use section, it states one of the key ways Saanich and the Capital Regional have been working towards creating a sustainable region is by adhering to an urban containment boundary that limits urban sprawl. The current official community plan in the Capital Regional District's regional growth strategy note a number of areas in Saanich where additional density should be focused. All of the centers and villages were selected because the locations were already noted as commercial centers in the existing official community plan. The locations are better serviced by public transit, and the locations are adjacent to one or more major roadways. The benefits of limiting future growth to inside the urban containment boundary are better protection of the rural and farmland, better protection of environmentally sensitive areas and green space, and servicing land for water, sewage, and roads is more cost effective. In the rural Saanich section states the rural Saanich is valued by its residents and by those from outside the area for its natural beauty, diverse environments, high biological diversity, agriculture and well-forested lands, and rural lifestyle. The diversity of the natural environment and the variety of environmental features remain today, primarily as a result of the ongoing stewardship of local residents and Saanich's leadership in implementing growth management, environmental protection, and other planning concepts to retain the character of the area. The rural policies in Saanich state that they will support the retention of rural and farm lands through adherence to the urban containment boundary policy and preservation of the agricultural land reserve, maintaining farming, food production, and large lot residential as the predominant land use on rural lands, and to maintain a minimum parcel area of 2 hectares for A1 and 4 hectares for A4. In the infrastructure services section, it states that sewers, storm drainage, water lines, solid waste, and utilities are essential elements of a community's physical fabric, ensuring individual, community, economic, and environmental health, and supporting growth and development. Services in many areas of Saanich reflect its rural history and diverse neighborhood character. Open ditches, septic systems, and wells in some areas contrast the full urban standards in other areas. There is a distinct difference between the levels of service inside and outside of the urban containment boundary. In keeping with the community's desire to protect rural lands from inappropriate development and minimize impacts on the natural environment. The liquid waste management section
Susan, I get you to wrap up your comments, please.
Okay. It has been stated by Council that the public needs to be given an opportunity to voice the opinion on its site. However, the public has been given an opportunity to voice its opinion on the establishment of the urban containment boundary at the time it was created and when the official community plan was approved. To undo the public consultations process used at this time at the whim of a few politicians at a meeting is reckless and irresponsible. If it is the desire of these council members, they should give the same amount of time to that process that was given to that process they do to the Walkus Way treatment strategy. To have been considered...
you need to wrap your comments up, please.
Okay. I'd just like to state that I'm totally opposed to the Walkus Way strategy because of the urban containment boundary jeopardization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Yes, Councillor. Microphone.
In consideration of that other word called fairness to all our speakers, Could we indicate to our speakers when their 5 minutes or their time limit is up?
That's a good idea. I have a timer here and doing my best.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. My name is Barry Lokes. I live at 4160 Glendenning Road, and I am representing myself this evening. I would like to speak in support of protecting the ALR. The ALR has been under constant pressure to have land removed since its inception in 1973. I understand that in recent years, its average annual decline is 0.5%. Recent local examples of such pressure include this property, the Watkisway, one on Mount Douglas Crossroad, a large amount of land in Langford, and a proposed mall in Sydney. If we continue to remove parcels of land from the ALR, the cumulative effect will be substantial and difficult to reverse. Prevention of loss is often much easier to achieve than recovery. The Atlantic cod is such an example. I asked one of the local mayors why the waste management proposal was proceeding when there were so many scientific opinions that the proposed treatment, in comparison to our present treatment, would not be beneficial to the environment and might even be more harmful. The response was that this project is not about science, it's about perception. Well, I think the public generally supports this project because there is a perception that the project is being done for environmental benefit. If the environmental benefit is already tenuous, however, then using agricultural land further reduces the likelihood of achieving such benefit. The heat and drought we have had this summer may be just a taste of things to come with global warming. Not only might our present sources of food become restricted because of climate change, but our local food production procedures might require change. We have noted several changes in our own garden this summer. Water consumption has increased. We are picking the last variety of a succession of berries that normally continue to the end of September, but this year I expect will only last till late August. The onion tops are already down and ready for drying, so I expect our winter storage will be shortened. The maple trees are dropping brown leaves and require raking, something which is not normally done in July. I realize these are anecdotal observations, but it does make me wonder what local adaptations might be required in the future. I expect, like the majority of people, each of you supports the ALR. As elected officials, however, you have been given the added responsibility to make the difficult and at times controversial decisions as to whether or not the ALR is protected. In 2006, the CRD decided to exclude the ALR land from consideration as a treatment site. The Saanich Overall Community Plan also does not support removing land from the ALR. I would like to encourage you to uphold these two policies and thus protect the ALR.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Vicki Husband. I actually own a property in Saanich. I'm a resident of the Highlands, but part-time resident of Saanich as well. Just to clarify that, and because many have heard me speak on behalf of the Highlands before. And I have lived in the Highlands for 45 years, and born in Victoria. I do support the decision of Council of June 22nd, and I really feel strongly about this because I spent a lot of my time defending the ALR and the urban containment boundary and the regional growth strategy and trying to get amendments to the regional sustainability strategy. All of these are really important when we talk about planning. These are instruments for planning. And we are losing the ALR, the previous speaker said that, and we are in a drought situation. I just came down the island from Tofino yesterday, and the rivers are so low, and some are underground. And I think we've not seen this before. We are in a period of climate change, and we have to look after food-growing lands, even if they aren't in production right now. So I would urge you to think in that way. The importance of the protection of agricultural land and keeping to the regional growth strategy, the urban containment boundaries could not be more critically important to our region. And so I have to oppose the proposal to develop the Watkisway site as a sewage treatment facility. This is a huge industrial operation. And I'm still not clear that we have found the real way of dealing with our sewage. We seem to be not clear about it. I don't like dropping raw sewage into the ocean. I've done a lot of work on oceans. So the other issue is setting a precedent. If it's can be removed from the ALR, you set a very dangerous precedent. And that puts the value of land and agricultural land up higher, and the inability of young farmers to be able to farm. And all of these. Saanich has stood up very strongly in the past to protect ALR lands and to keep development within the urban containment boundaries. And so I'm asking Saanich Council again to stand up for those principles and to vote against this proposal again. Thank you for your attention, and I just wonder, do I drop my letter to the municipal clerk, or what do I do?
Please. Yeah. Right here.
Lady in pink.
That's right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Brad Little from Esquimalt, and I think maybe for the sake of brevity, I'll just direct my comments directly to Councillor Derman.
If you can direct them through me.
Sure.
That's the usual method, thank you.
That's fine. You know, basically what I'd like to say, and just kind of pursuant to a couple of things that have been brought up, we're talking about looking at a site, at a potential site here, as opposed to making real hard and fast decisions. And you know, to that aspect, I think a lot of the current concerns that are being brought forward from people that are against a WACUS site coming into this, these are valid concerns. I just question whether, you know, at this point in time, whether this is really something for Saanich Council at this moment. And part of it, the reason I bring it up is because Councillor Derman has been involved on the Sewage Council, on the Sewage Committee, the core, you know, for a number of years, and quite frankly, being somebody from Esquimalt and following it, I have a lot of respect for what you've done on that council. And you know, I consider you really one of 4 people to have really gotten on the right side of this thing and shown some leadership over the years on basically saving us from a sewage treatment proposal, which I think was, you know, financially ruinous. So I'm aware of your voting record there, and I think it's an admirable one. So I'm going to quote something that you said from the May 27th special meeting back to you. It was in the context of you were talking about and really sort of going back and forth with Ben Isaac about the integration of solid waste. And what it was that you said is, we don't know what it is that is going to come in front of us. It could be something that needs to be evaluated right now. It could be part of a project that took place very quickly. And then you, just a little bit of context, you went on to say a few more seconds. If something does come about, we want to be able to consider it at this time. We all know the timelines, and we're all trying to stay within them. But that doesn't mean we should throw out something that might potentially have a lot of benefit down the road. There's no benefit in doing that. And I agreed I was actually just sitting behind you at the time that you said that, and I agreed very strongly with you know, because really what we were talking about at that point, or what the people around the table were discussing, was the possibility of integrating our waste streams. And anyways, that was a very, you know, what you added to that, even though it didn't, you know, sort of got voted down, I think you were very much, you know, that made a lot of sense to me. And so I'd just like to make a few key points about the WACUS Way site, and I'll be done. I think there's a few benefits, at least three benefits to looking at the site. The first one is the location. It's central, it's near a sewer line, it's near a hospital. It does have resource recovery capabilities, and when I say central, I mean central to the whole region. So, you know, for me personally, I think it makes a logical gasification site. And in terms of the ALR concerns, part of it is having faith in the political process that will be looked at in due time. And part of the reason I say this is because you're on the East Side Committee and at the core. So you're going to get 2 more, if this site did go forward and if it actually did almost, you know, get down to the end, you'd still have 2 more votes. And I'm glad you're there to do that for us. So the second part is the owner of the property, and I realize, you know, in Saanich here, there might be a lot of history with this particular owner, but the owner is amenable to the site being used, so I think that's a plus there. And then finally, my question to the council here is, does Saanich really want to make this call regarding resource recovery or sewage treatment for the whole region in this context right now? Like I said, there are other hurdles to cross, and there is a process in place for the concerns of citizens here to be taken into account and to find out whether this is a really advantageous site for sewage treatment. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Are there any members of the public wish to speak?
Good evening, my name is John Farquharson. I'm a resident of Victoria. I'm also a director of the Sewage Treatment Action Group, and I'd like to speak to resolutions for adoptions for adoption 1, 2, and 3. There's some good news about the public engagement process, and that's that almost 1,000 people voted or commented through the FLO website in the community dialogue process. So congratulations on garnering such a high level of input. But there's also some bad news. 2 Eastside Select Committee's guiding principles for public consultation are that it be both site-focused and meaningful. Principle number 6 of the International Association of the Public Participation, IAP2, states that for the public to participate in the decision-making process in a meaningful way, they need to be provided with the necessary information. In evaluating the various sites, the public clearly did not have the requisite information. This shortcoming was reflected in many of the director's comments at Wednesday's Eastside Select Committee meeting. For example, Director Young said that even in the absence of real cost information, people chose a site thinking they had real cost information. They used pipe length as a stand-in for real costing information. Director Durman commented that we may have been ill-advised to do what we did, as the public had no capacity to evaluate the sites. Director Brownhoff said it was very hard, observed that it was very hard for the public to pick sites based on the information that we provided. Director Plant said that some of the now eliminated sites would still be there if people had known they might have been part of a small decentralized system. They were fearful, said Director Plant. The methodology we've used will result in us now possibly not having the best distributed proposal. The public was also aware of this failure. In their feedback, they made it very clear that they did not want to be engaged or consulted any further on site selection until they had detailed technical analysis, rigorous costing information, and trade-offs in hand. There are 4 new sites up for consideration for a technical review in front of you tonight. What they all have in common is that if they are put forward for a technical analysis, they will have missed the opportunity for evaluation that the public has had so far on the other sites. This clearly is not a problem, since the public has said very clearly, no more sites for consideration without the accompanying technical analysis. There will be an opportunity for these and other late entry sites to come before the public for feedback in October. And they will be in the format that residents have asked for, that is, with an accompanying technical analysis. As for the 2 pump station sites before you tonight, the Eastside Select Committee has requested that they be offered up for consideration. As for the 4300 block of Interurban Road, although it missed the June 24th deadline, there's still time for it to be considered. And as for the Watkis Way property, I think that Mayor Atwell adequately addressed the associated issues of the ALR and the urban containment boundary in his July 16th memo to Council. Putting these 4 sites forward for costing and technical analysis will help mitigate the serious shortcoming to date of meaningful public participation in the site selection process. So I strongly encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Councillors, staff, Councillor Croft, 1044 Inverness Road. I'm going to be really short. I'm going to talk on 1, 3, and 5. Basically, I'm looking at this as it's kind of out and it's in the agricultural land. I'm just curious why, if we really think out of the box and think very visionary into the future, why our sewage treatment isn't going to go underneath our urban centers. Then resource recovery would energize those mass centers where you're going to put all your population. You can also recharge your urban watersheds because we destroy them basically through concrete jungle atmosphere of roads. It's just another thought. We all keep looking at existing other vacant land. Let's put it where the people will be. Okay, now we go on to 3. I don't support privately owned sewer treatment sites. And 5, which is budget guidelines. There was discussion in the report basically indicating that because development isn't going to be as prominent, there isn't going to be the resources of funds coming in. Well, why don't we look at the 9,000 illegal wells, they're now supposedly legal suites, but to have compliance done of those 9,000 suites, which means permits will be brought forward, which is another form of income. And it will offset what we don't have going in our in the development sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Alison Ross, 4038 South Valley Drive. Good evening. My view is that Saanich should indeed forward this site to the East Side Selection Committee. And I say that for the following reasons. Saanich is not alone in this process. It has agreed to work together with other municipalities in order to find a solution to our sewage treatment dilemma. As such, Saanich should respect that process. The committee did ask for private landowners to identify sites that may be suitable. This has happened. And because Saanich is part of a committee, the decision as to the suitability of the site should rest with that committee and not with Saanich alone. The process of site selection must be seen to be open and transparent. To block consideration of a site by the committee can be viewed as NIMBYism. No one is thrilled at the thought of a sewage plant near them. Ensure that Saanich is seen to be participating fully in this process. And if the site is not suitable, then Saanich should also respect the competency of its partners to determine that, i.e., the risk of selecting this site, given the comments tonight, seem low. But the risk to Saanich in public perception, if the East Side Committee is not permitted to examine this site, is higher. However, just because I support the process doesn't mean I support the Walk This Way site. I do have reservations if the treatment plant is the best use of this site. It is in the ALR, as been noted previously. But do we know about its ability to sustain agriculture? An August 2013 article in the Saanich News reported on one resident's suggestion that that area become a park. Personally, I like that idea because it preserves the tree canopy. And as we all know, Saanich is losing tree canopy at an alarming rate. In short, I think there are other options for this site that need to be explored. Two features I like about this proposal are the suggestion that there could be heat recovery and some tie-in with the Victoria General Hospital, as well as the suggestion for greenhouses, which would preserve an agricultural component. However, the West Side Committee has currently identified View Royal, Burnside and Watkins as a potential site. And it may be that the benefits of the Walk This Way site can be accomplished instead by the View Royal site without worrying about our ALR and the urban containment boundary. So in conclusion, I would urge Council to send this site forward to the East Side Select Committee in the interests of transparency and respecting the process. However, I would also urge Council to indicate that it is opposed to the selection of this site and provide reasons for that opposition, and you've heard many of those tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Bee Lake and I live on Bearwood Court. I wasn't intending to speak tonight, but I've decided to. I'd like to speak on the agricultural point of view. Personally, I support forwarding this site to the Site Selection Committee. I've been involved in agriculture for quite a while. My parents and grandparents were farmers on the Saanich Peninsula. I currently do not own a farm, but I do co-own a herd of livestock that in Saanich, on the Saanich farm. When the ALR was created, it contained a lot of appropriate and inappropriate land. I don't know how much consideration was given to the productivity of some of the land, but I want to say that right now there's farmland, very productive farmland in Saanich that is outside of the ALR that could be included into the ALR. And I would like to ask Saanich that if this, again, Watkins Way, as I understand it, the Watkins Way land is not productive farmland. It's not going to be productive farmland. A lot of our ALR land, a lot of the land around here is very rocky. It's got a very thin layer of topsoil. It could be very acidic. It's often not really good farmland compared to other places. I'd like to suggest you consider maybe reaching out to the Saanich farmers. If you take this out of the ALR, you reach out to Saanich farmers, find the productive farmland that's outside of the ALRs, and maybe include it into the ALR. I know some really great land that should be in the ALR and somehow was missed when the ALR was created, or it was taken out for various reasons, and like subdivisions, it was not subdivided. I could give examples, but anyway, my time's up, so I just want to let you know that I support the Watkins Way as a site, and I think that we could, if it's removed from the ALR, we could replace it with more productive farmland and support our local farmers. I really believe in food security, and I think we've got great potential for that in Saanich. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Mayor and Council, my name is Ray Parks. I live in View Royal, and I represent Mr. Van Kerkhoff, the owner of the Watkins Way site. I didn't plan to speak tonight, but I'm compelled to clarify some issues and to correct some what is being passed off as factual information. Mr. Van Kerkhoff never suggested ever that the land come out of the ALR. And I agree that if we use ALR land for another purpose, it's not being used for food production. He has since advised me that should there be a need to find other arable land that needs to be included in the ALR, he'd be willing to work with you to do that. In other words, find comparable acreage, quality, and so on, to make sure that this is a net zero gain for anybody. So he came forward with that this afternoon. It was never proposed to come out of the ALR, and it was proposed to have approximately 10 acres plus or minus of greenhouses. You couldn't grow rocks on that site today, and you won't get to grow rocks there in the future. It's non-arable land. We have soil reports to that effect, not only for that land, the other land on the farm, and the neighboring land on the neighboring farms. It's just, at best, you will grow grass. Any person can see that if you add 10 acres of greenhouses, you're going to increase the production many-fold over what you would otherwise. I too appreciate the forest that's on that land, and the way to preserve the forest is to only harvest that which is needed for the project in the greenhouses and not tear down every tree so that they can grow every blade of grass that's possible. It just doesn't make any sense. The site is the epicenter of the region's infrastructure. It is right near the center. And I appreciate the fellow from View Royal saying what he did. I too live in View Royal, another stone's throw from the project. Projects like this, when the experts go through the process of identifying the best way to do the project, and none of us have talked about that, we're not there yet, but when that happens, it has to be odor-free. It has to be pleasant for the public, whether it's visible or not, and so on. This is the one site that allows you to do that. So I just wanted to make sure people understood the request was never to take it out of the ALR. It's